today I'm with Dr. Tomas Teskey in Arizona.
I'm glad you came all this way.
Thank you, thank you. So we're here at his ranch. It is absolutely amazing here. And how many acres do you have here?
We rotate our animals around 5,000 acres, so I have several different pastures.
Yes.
So they don't have to be in the same place
Yes.
the same time every year.
Yes.
And this just follows the way we've done it with cattle for years and years, and
Yes.
now I do it with horses.
Now, how did you get into this industry or this profession of being an equine vet?
My father is a veterinarian. He did a career with small animal and exotic animals, zoo animals. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind and all around me growing up. And it kind of fell into place.
So how did you end up going down the barefoot track? Pardon the pun.
It got to the point when I was in veterinary practice where case after case after case was only managed and not healed. So we were doing things with founder cases, horses with heel problems, and we were just managing them, just letting them get along the best they could, smoldering along. It was not a fix.
Were they actually shot at the time they were being rehabbed?
Many of them were. For the most part, that was what we used. Those were the tools in our toolbox for dealing with these cases. Oh, we use this kind of shoe or this kind of pad or this kind of wedge, and it's still taught. You know, it's a made-up science around how we can manipulate the horse to do what we want to do. It's very, very one-sided view of horsemanship and equine science. Instead of getting the horse as a partner in this whole thing, traditionally it's been, you're going to do this when I say, what I say, and how fast and how much, and this day and not this day. Very, very dictating. So that perspective, along with a science that was very manipulative, that turned out to be the reason why these horses were not healing, because it was too much dictating from the outside. Where are you nurturing? Where's the nurturing? Where are the basic ingredients that horses need to heal themselves? Because I can't heal horses. Horses heal themselves when they have the ingredients they need to heal. And I want to put a plug in for a book that I'm writing, just because it's going to address and it's going to give the feel for what this perspective is like. We have to include the horse in this equation, or we will not be successful. Horses can be very successful partners with us. Through history, they've been more of a slave. But we lose nothing in this new arrangement, in this new, think of it as a new contract, as a new arrangement of, hey, would you like, what about an invitation? We like to be invited to do things. Turns out horses do too.
Yes, of course, of course. What are you doing to try and get that message out that the reason why your horse normally has navicular, well, apart from other reasons, is through shoeing? So how are you getting that message out to those people who just are so concerned about their horse, and genuinely so, because it's their best friend?
Right.
But yet the cause has been shoeing.
Yeah, we can identify the biggest risk factors, because what you're talking about are risk factors for developing a disease. And in this case, it's hoof contraction. This is the foundational problem. Truly foundational, right? Because it's their feet next to the earth that are becoming diseased. And unless we start educating people to demand more competence from veterinarians and farriers, this will not turn around. Because there's a very, very entrenched and very almost religious at times perspective on this is how we handle this, this, and this. The textbooks say it. This is what we teach the veterinary students. This is the way we do it. The way we do it.
Yes.
Okay, so unless we give people a different idea to say, hey, did you consider? Or even would you consider? And that foundational perspective is this: you must not confine the feet or the horse. And when you use rigid materials on the horse's hoof, that's confining the foot. And what happens with it is it stops its normal movements, circulation, sensation. It can't exfoliate itself. It can't move and adjust and yield anymore. So it's held rigid, and the predictable consequence is atrophy. And that leads to navicular problems because there's only enough space in the rear part of the foot for the circulation and the nerves to enter inside the hoof capsule. And as it shrinks, hoof contraction, it actually impinges on the ends of the navicular bone, causes bone remodeling, but it always causes soft tissue changes first. Always. If you think you're going to look for a navicular problem with x-rays, you've missed it. Because months or years ago, the soft tissue changes were happening, the atrophy, the hoof contraction. So using x-rays to determine whether or not you have a navicular problem is like, to me, looking at the ashes of a fire that's already gone through and burned it down. We needed to identify this long ago. And that's why we don't confine our horses and we don't confine their feet. And what I want to teach people is how to maximize space in a limited area. How do you get horses to move more in 1 or 2 acres?
What is the natural movement of a horse insofar as his hoof is concerned?
The healthiest horses use the back of their foot, which is where the soft tissue lives. And if it's big enough and robust enough and of quality material, they land on their heels and then roll through their arch and break over at the toe. It's comparable to us. Our heel would be like their frog, their landing pad. So the soundest horses with the best soft tissue in the back of their foot land appropriately. And the reason it's appropriate is because it handles the incoming energy the best. So for every force, equal and opposite force, the weight of the horse coming down on the earth into the ground, if they place their heel to absorb that energy and it distributes through the digital cushion, collateral cartilages, soft tissue, then it's not such a concussive blow. Because you can even feel this riding a barefoot horse versus a shod horse, the amount of concussion coming through the body. And it's quite noticeable. So the heel first landing as well sets up the best circulation and the best sensation also. And this is a study that's been going on for at least 12 years now with Dr. Bowker and others studying the microvascular circulation, how these blood vessels respond to landing. And horses that land toe first are really set up for a devastating progression of disease, including disease with their blood vessels, the bone itself becoming osteoporosis. You know, we're familiar with osteoporosis. Turns out it's very common in horses that land on their toes. Even the bones themselves start to shrink up. So it's not just the hoof that shrinks, but the whole bone and the soft tissue as well from a toe landing. So anything we can do with the terrain or a boot or a pad inside of a boot to ask a horse, invite a horse that's been toe landing, hey, try your heel now, because I gave you something better to land on.
And what causes a horse to toe land rather than heel land first?
Heel pain.
And what's that heel pain caused from?
Lack of tissue, lack of normal, resilient, concussion absorbing tissue. It doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel stable, it doesn't feel like it will hold. A horse is not going to land on something that they don't have tissue enough to handle that landing.
I see it daily that more and more people they're so hungry to learn more about the horse anatomy and all the pathologies, the hoof pathologies that go with owning a horse.
People come to their own realizations in time, and what spurs that is consequences. You know, if and when you are ready to consider something else. And why would you consider something else? Because what you're doing is painful. or what you observe happening because of your choices is painful. Your partner, your kid's pony, your family's animals, disabled or dead. I mean, this is life and death stuff with regards to our animals.
How do you see the future of veterinarians coming out of college? Do you think that learning more about the hoof is going to be included in their curriculum as opposed to what's happening now? Because it seems that they're leaving vet school and knowing all about the horse from the coronet band up. Or am I being too critical here?
So what will happen is you will have veterinary schools change because the people in charge of those veterinary schools will change.
Right.
So it always comes down to the people. And it just takes a handful of people to say, wow, I think we need to broaden our view here. The thing with the teaching hospital and a university is everybody brings the strange stuff, all the referral cases. So as a veterinary student, you get to see all the weird things. And that's cool, but it's not relevant to what we see in real life. You know, time after time, case after case of the more common things, like heel problems, like hoof contraction, like laminitis. So until that comes around and people in charge want to give students a bigger view, then it won't change.
And what do you see the barefoot movement happening at the moment? Do you see it increasing? Do you see more horses barefoot now? Do you see this momentum building up? Because in Switzerland, it's the norm for a horse to be barefoot, whereas here, in other places, it's not. It's the norm to have a horse shod.
Yeah. So all we have to do is look at the number of boot designs that have come out in the last 15 years. You know, at first we had 2 or 3, and now there's over 15 to 20 different kinds of hoofwear for horses that's dynamic hoofwear. Because why? The hoof is dynamic. You have to complement the hoof, and people are getting that. And so yes, I think the demand is increasing because people are like, wow, that makes sense, it feels right intuitively, and they don't need a veterinary degree because I can demonstrate for you the dynamic nature of the horse and the horse's foot. It's right here. When I dissect the hoof for you, you'll be like, wow, I didn't know that moved like that. And so now what do you want to do? How do you think you want to protect that foot? Steel is the wrong material, the wrong material. We have to use something dynamic if we want to protect or add or complement or nurture the foot. Otherwise, what is it? It's antagonistic. So you can antagonize the foot and end up with predictable consequences of contraction, peripheral loading, laminitis, atrophy, osteoporosis. The list is long. And it's all the common things that we read about.
Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it? Steel on rock and hard surfaces, it's concussive. So it's a no-brainer, really, what's going to occur.
Yeah.
So while we're on the subject of boots, what's your boot of choice?
So Dave sent me some scoot boots to try.
He did.
I really appreciated that, and I put them to a good test. And if you think you live in a rocky place, just come and visit me, because I'll show you some rocks. This country almost more suitable for donkeys and mules.
Yeah.
Because it's so rocky.
Yeah.
And I have several horses that can go without. But the cool thing about the boots, the scoot boots that I tried, of the boot designs, they are very dynamic. They are more bendable. So when a hoof inside that boot, which is now, see, we put the terrain on the horse. Think of it that way. You put the perfect terrain underneath your horse every step. How beautiful is that? So now if it's a rock, a mud, it doesn't matter, because every step is your perfect terrain.
Exactly.
However, with your boot, what I like is that it molds and it twists, and so horses that are just starting off, they might need a little pad, or they might need to toughen up a little bit. But wow, once you get to that point, which doesn't take long, 3 to 4 months, 3 to 4 months coming out of shoes, then you're off and running because you've grown a new heel, and you're coming into your new sides of your foot and developing an arch. But the scoop boot conforms to the environment better than most other boots that are very, very hard plastic bottom, and that's what I like about them. They stay on.
They're flexible. They flex with the movement of the horse.
Yep. Yep. And so they protect the whole sole, the whole edge, and up around the front. I mean, that's protection. There's nothing protective about a thin metal rim around the periphery of a hoof. It gives the illusion of protection. But if you really want to protect a foot, you need a covering, and you need a covering that's dynamic. And so that's where your technology comes in. It's beautiful.
Thanks so much, Thomas, for talking with us today. It was very informative, and I hope everyone out there gets a lot of information from our chat. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming out here and finding me in the way out west.